Please be seated. The court is now back in session. We would like to give the floor to Nguyen Chia's defense to put questions to this witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Your Honours. Good afternoon, Counsel. Good afternoon, Madam Witness. I have a few questions for you. I am the International Counsel of Nguyen Chia. Let me start by asking you about the death of your father in 1971. In your statement to the investigating judges, you said, that is on page 2, document E3474, that he was killed due to a bombing by Lon Nol aircraft. Could you tell us what happened exactly?
Good afternoon, Your Honours. The crimes that was committed against my father took place in Svai Tiep. I did not witness the event, but my uncle came to the house and told me that my father died due to a bombardment in Svai Tiep. He was hit by a bomb that was dropped.
And how did he know that it was a bombing by Lon Nol aircraft?
That was a war period, and there was the liberated side and the Lon Nol side. And on the liberation side, we did not have any plane. Only the Lon Nol side possessed the planes. So usually they would drop bombs where the soldiers stayed or based, and the plane came from Phnom Penh.
Do you know if your father was the only casualty, or were more people killed?
I did not ask him the details. I only heard that my father was one of the casualties. There were other casualties, but I didn't know how many exactly.
Do you know if that bombing and the death of your father was a reason for your brothers to join the revolution in 1970 and 71?
First, only one of my elder brothers joined, and my second brother stayed with my father, and after my father passed away, my second elder brother also joined.
You've stated in your statement with the investigating judges that your brother Hoon joined the Liberation Army in 1970. You also testified that he visited home 4 times after he joined the Liberation Army. Do you remember that he, while he was a member of the Revolutionary Forces, came to visit you and your brothers and sisters?
No, your question is not correct. He actually joined the army before his visits. It is not the other way around.
Maybe something went wrong in the translation, but that's what I actually meant. You stated in your statement that your brother visited home 4 times after he joined the army. That is correct, isn't it?
Yes, as I stated, he joined the army for a few years and then he came to visit.
I know it's a long time ago, but do you remember him telling stories about battles that he was involved in? Battles, I mean, with Lon Nol military?
Yes, he told me about the battlefields that he participated in, including Prek Kadam, Prek Pno, and actually my second elder brother died in the Prek Pno battlefield.
Do you remember what he told you about the battles that he was in with the Lon Nol military?
He talked precisely about the battlefield in Prek Pno.
Do you remember if he ever told you stories about Lon Nol soldiers or Lon Nol military being captured by him or his unit or by other revolutionary forces?
No, he did not talk about that. He came to visit us because he missed us, and he spent a few days and then he would return.
The fact that you and your deceased brothers... Now let me rephrase. The fact that your brothers joined the revolutionary forces, was that for you also a reason to join the revolutionary forces?
In fact, I was not aware of those stories. Only after I joined and when he came to visit us, then he told me about those stories.
Did he ever tell you about execution of captured Lon Nol soldiers?
I did not hear that from him.
Now I understand from your statement that he was part of the Liberation Army in the North Zone. At one point you joined the revolutionary forces as well, but you went to the East Zone. Do you know why he went to the North Zone and you to the East Zone?
we originated from the East Zone, so I joined it in the East Zone. But as for him, he went for his business in a Swai tip in Boknao that happened before the coup d'etat. So when the war erupted, he did not return home. Instead, he joined the army there.
Madam Witness, earlier this morning you testified about yourself joining the revolutionary forces. And if I wrote it down correctly, you said that you were a member of a third group of a platoon of female combatants in the East Zone. Is that correct?
I was an ordinary female combatant. I was assigned to a group of 100 soldiers. I was in the 3rd squad in the 2nd platoon of the 13th company.
And your rank was that of an ordinary soldier? Is that correct?
Yes, I was an ordinary female combatant, as I said. I was in the 3rd squad, and I was a member of the squad, not a squad leader. I did not have any role in that squad. I was simply a member. And that squad was under the platoon, and that platoon was under the company 13.
And this company 13 was ultimately under the Division 203. Do I say that correctly?
.203 is not a code name for a division. 203 it is for a sector on the east side of the Mekong River within that zone. It is not Division 203, it is Zone 203, says the witness.
Yes, you're right, I'm sorry. Would you be able to tell if your battalion was part of a division, for instance the 3rd Division or the 4th Division or the 5th Division?
In fact, there were not many female combatants, and the female one only composed within a squad, and we did not expand into any female combatant division. It was newly created, and there were limited numbers of female combatants.
But were you ultimately part of a larger group called a division?
I don't really understand it. As I said, female combatant did not expand up to a division. There could be thousands of soldiers within a division, but our female combatants existed in limited number.
I understand, but was your group, although they were small, the group was small, nevertheless part of a bigger entity? In other words, was your platoon a part of a bigger division?
No.
Were you ever actively engaged in battle with former Lon Nol military?
At that time, we actually received a training, and at the conclusion of the training, the war ended. That is, it ended with the liberation on the 17th April, and then we were demobilized and turned into mobile unit.
So you never have been fighting, I understand from you. Have you been part of the liberation of Phnom Penh, or didn't that happen also?
No, I was not part of the liberation, but after the liberation I came to do the cleaning.
But that was much later, after 17 April 75, is that correct?
You mean immediately after in 1975? Actually, my journey to Phnom Penh, I described it already this morning. We did the cleaning, and I went elsewhere. Then I returned to Phnom Penh to engage in the sewing factory.
I'm trying to ask you, maybe in other words, where were you in the weeks and months after 17 April 75?
After the liberation in 1975, I was in Cambodia district. I stayed there for 2 or 3 months, and then I came to Phnom Penh.
Now, I would like to ask you a few questions about the training that you received. You just testified that almost during the days that Phnom Penh was liberated, you finished your training. Do you remember if a part of the training was the treatment of Lon Nol soldiers once they were captured after a battle?
The training purpose was to prepare us to engage in the battlefield, but as I said, we did not engage in any battlefield due to the liberation on the 17th April 1975.
I understand, but do you remember if there were instructions given during these trainings about what to do with Lon Nol soldiers once they were captured or became prisoners of war?
We were simply combatants, but we did not know the reality that existed in the front battlefield. We did not know what would happen to those captured soldiers and whether they were tortured or not.
Do you remember in the months after 17 April 75, what happened to captured Lon Nol soldiers? Have you ever been able to witness yourself former Lon Nol soldiers who had been captured?
No, I did not see that. I never saw it. I saw people who were evacuated from Phnom Penh, and later on we came to Phnom Penh, so we did not see anything of that nature.
Do you remember whether you ever heard something about the targeting of Lon Nol soldiers, or maybe even the execution of Lon Nol soldiers in Phnom Penh or around Phnom Penh in the months after 17 April 1975?
At that time, no such information was provided. We stayed put in one place and we did not know what happened elsewhere. We were only aware of what we worked and did.
Mrs. Witness, you gave a statement to the OCIJ. That would be page 3 in the middle, document E3474. There you stated as follows. I requested to stop and volunteer to join a women's unit of East Zone led by Sao Pim. What do you mean, or what did you mean when you said that your unit was led by Sao Pim?
I wanted to say that when the female unit was established, that unit was established by the zone committee, and the purpose of recruiting a female unit was for transportation, and we were given training in order to engage in any foreseeable battlefield. But Sao Pim never came to meet us. But we were part of the East Zone military.
So your unit was part of a bigger entity led by Sao Pim. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
And when you say we were led by Sao Pim, this means that not literally in the sense of being led by a commander, but rather that Sao Pim was the top commander of the forces that you belong to. Would that be correct?
Yes, that is correct. But he actually created a female unit for transportation of food to the front battlefield. But he did not involve in the day-to-day supervision of the female unit.
Do you know a person called Seng Hong?
I don't seem to be familiar with that name, and I have not heard that name before.
Do you know who was the zone deputy secretary in the Eastern Zone in the period 75-79.
I was a lowest rank combatant. I would not have the knowledge of the very top commander or people.
Do you know a person called Kev Samnang?
No, I don't.
If I tell you that he was the chief of the Eastern Zone military staff, does that ring a bell?
No, it doesn't ring a bell. I never knew this person.
You know a person called Li Pen?
I do not know this name.
Do you know a person called Pu Hak?
Response: No, I don't. I was too young to know these people.
If I tell you that he was the commander in the Eastern Zone of the 3rd Division, would that ring a bell?
Response: No, I'm afraid not.
Does the name Paul Saroon sound familiar?
Response: No, it doesn't.
Does the name Kri ring a bell?
Response: No, it doesn't.
Mr. President, I have one more question to this witness in respect of a name in the Eastern Zone. You know him as TCW 223. I would like to ask to get leave to show the witness the name of TCW 223 on a piece of paper, and simply ask the witness if the name is familiar, and without mentioning the name, if she knows him, describe his functions in the Eastern Zone.
The President: You may proceed, but also please indicate to specific time frame when this witness may know this particular individual. Court officer is now directed to bring the document from counsel to the witness.
Does his name sound familiar, Madam Witness? And I'm specifically asking about the period 1975, April 75.
Response: I never known this person. Never. have just learned his name and his face very recently through watching TV.
Thank you, Mr. President.
The President. Thank you. Now, I would like to hand over to counsels for Mr. Kyo Sampon to put some questions to the witness. You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Madame Witness. My name is Arthur Verken. I am one of the international lawyers representing Mr. Kyo Sampon. I shall ask you a few questions. The first concerning the training sessions that you stated you attended. These were training sessions you described as having been chaired by Mr. Kyo Sampon. They will speak of the date of the training sessions, and this morning the co-prosecutor read out to you a passage from your recorded interview conducted by this tribunal's investigators in March 2008. The passage that he read out to you and that you confirmed contains your assertion that, and I quote, the first training, which took place in Boré-Kéla in 1976, was given by Kyo Sampon, end of quote. Could you please confirm or invalidate the date that this supposed training session was given by Mr. Kyo Sampon in 1976?
Response. It was in late 1976. Yes. It's almost reaching 1977. It was very late of that year.
D'accord.
Very well. This morning, you referred to the date. When you talked about the study session, you stated Kyo Sampon didn't want us to argue. He wanted us to unite because the war had just ended. And what I'm interested in is your sentence, the war had just ended. What war were you referring to in the response you provided to the co-prosecutor?
Response. I was referring to the war in Cambodia because there were one war after another, and when the wars ended, he asked us to make sure we unite and work together to rebuild the country, and we were still very young. It would be best that we worked together to grow to do farming, to help the country.
Thank you. If I understand correctly, the war that you referred to this morning was the war that ended with the April 17th, 1975 victory. Is this correct?
Yeah.
Response. Yes, it is.
In the interest of clarity and to make sure that we are all clear on when the study sessions occurred, these study sessions that were chaired by Mr. Kyo Sampon, You also testified this morning in response to a question put to you by the co-prosecutor. His question was whether or not it was the first time Mr. Kyo Sompong headed the study session, if it was the first time you had heard about traitors, and that prior to that first study session, you had never heard of any discussion about traitors. Is this correct?
Response: yes, it is.
Donc, Madame, est-il exact?
Therefore, is it accurate to say, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that of the 2 study sessions you testified you attended, Mr. Kyo Sompong chaired the first session, and Mr. Nunchia would have chaired the second study session. Is this correct?
Response: I think it is rather confusing in that question, or perhaps you misunderstood me. When Kyo Sompong was lecturing in the session, he didn't mention anything about traitors, because only at the later date when he talked about this. During the first session, he mentioned more about rebuilding the country, and only in the second study session or meeting in which he mentioned about that.
Vous dites...
You stated, you're saying that Mr. Kyo Sompong chaired 2 study sessions? Or are you talking about the second study session that would have been presided over by Mr. Nunchia? Can you please specify?
Response: I said I attended the study sessions at Borei Kaila on 2 occasions, the first session and the second session. The first session was conducted in late 76, early 1977. At that time, arrests were not yet made, no traitors were being mentioned. But in 1978, during the second session, then these terms were mentioned. So again, during the first session I attended, no mention of traitors being made. He only educated us on how to promote our solidarity work, encouraged us to work together to make sure our country was prosperous. And that was the session in 1976, late 1976 or early 1977. During the second study session, the topic of traitors being discussed.
Who led the second study session? Who spoke? Who was the person who led that study session?
Response: Uncle Kyo Sompong was chairing the second session, and the first session was chaired by Uncle Nuon Chia.
Ce matin, Madame,
Madam Witness, this morning you testified to the contrary. The co-prosecutor read to you an excerpt from your written record of interview, a witness from the 5th of March 2008, and you stated that the first study session held at Borikela in 1977 was chaired by Mr. Kyosompon, and further on the same page 4 of the French version, you stated that Nunchia led a study session also at Borikela in 1978. Now, I know that these facts go back a very long time, but we need to know exactly what your testimony is. What do you remember about the dates and about what you said to the investigators in March 2008? Because what you have just testified now seems to be the opposite of what you said back then.
Response. I believe that perhaps my response was not right to the order of the questions, and I can say that my memory is not as good as it used to be, because this happened a long time ago. And the fact is there, two of them would be chairing these events. I attended the sessions when they lectured.
I will put you a very broad question, and you can answer as you please. Are you certain of being in a position to draw a distinction, to attribute what may have been said to Kyosompon or what may have been said by Nunchia? Or is such an exercise too difficult for you?
Response. I would like to now state clearly and choose to say that during the first session, Uncle Nunchia was chairing the meeting, and the second one was chaired by Uncle Kyosompon.
I'm rather taken aback, Madame, because you're saying two contradictory things. You're providing testimony today, but you're saying that your memory is faulty. We began by asking you a question about the date of the study session, and this morning, in response to the questions by the co-prosecutor, you specified that Mr. Kyosompon had chaired the study sessions at the time when the war had just ended, and that prior to that date you had never heard about any discussion of traitors. So if Nunchia's study session took place before Mr. Kyosompon's study session, then you would have heard about treason, because you told the investigators that you had heard about, that you had not heard about treason. Are things very clear to your mind?
Response. That's what he said at that time. He said, in the North Zone, there were some traitors. That's what he only referring to, the North Zone and the traitors, but he didn't mention names of individuals who were believed to be traitors.
And when you refer to he, who are you talking about? Are you talking about Nunchia, or are you talking about Kyosompon?
Response. I was referring to Mr. Keo Sampan.
Monsieur le Président.
Mr. President, I would seek to produce an audio excerpt of the interview that this witness participated in with this tribunal's investigators on the 5th of March 2008. As we are all well aware, the written record of witness interview belonging to this witness is a summary of the oral interview, and that has been signed. Nevertheless, the interview itself and the way that it proceeded may shed light on the circumstances in which a person was asked to address a particular subject. On the issue as to what Mr. Keo Sampan supposedly said or did not say at the study session in question, should be made clear by the audio passage and should further elucidate this witness's testimony. As the trial chamber has only recently decided to call this witness to the stand, we were unable to obtain an official translation of the audio transcript. However, I do have an unofficial translation that was provided to me by staff at this court. And I have already provided notice to the audiovisual unit to make a very short passage of this interview that was conducted by the court's investigators on the 5th of March 2008 with respect to Mr. Keo Sampan's participation in the first study session at Borikela.
The President, Counsel, could you please be more precise as to why you would like this recording to be played back, and to which particular fact this video recording is referring? And please also identify the exact minutes or starting point and the ending point of the portion of the recording that you would like to be played, so that the chamber is able to instruct people concerned to have it played.
Oui, bien.
Yes, of course, Mr. President. The subject serves as the basis for calling this witness to the stand following the co-prosecutor's request. The notification of the co-prosecutor in response to the request by the senior legal officer following the trial management meeting of the 13th of June. This is document E288/3. The Office of the Co-Prosecutors is calling for the summoning of this witness, TCW 168, who describes the political situation in Borikela, where Keo Sampan discusses the arrest of Pong from Office 870 because he was a traitor and he was serving the Vietnamese. And this is exactly why I would like to revisit what was said on the 5th of March 2008, and the audio recording is classified under D 94-8R. The interview begins at minute 39, second 31. For approximately 7 minutes. Or rather, the recording begins at minute 32, corrects the interpreter.
Oui, merci, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Council Verken, what the chamber seeks to... can you hear me?
1, 2, 3. M'entend pas? Est-ce que l'on m'entend? Non.
Council Verken, are you able to hear me? Perhaps he needs to change his headset.
Nous n'avons pas de son, Monsieur le juge.
Your Honor, we have no sound.
Ce micro, on m'entend.
Are you able to hear me if I speak in this microphone?
Là, on m'entend?
The President, Judge Lavian, could you please hold on? We appear to have some technical glitch regarding this interpreting equipment. People concerned already looking into it. The President, Judge Lavian, you may now proceed.
Oui, merci.
Thank you, Mr. President. I hope I am being heard now, loud and clear. What the bench seeks to know with clarity, Council Verken, is the following. You are asking for a production of one part of the audio recording of the interview involving this witness. We would like to know the specific reasons. You are asking the trial chamber to hear this specific clip from the audio recording. Is there a discrepancy or difference with the substance of the written record of witness interview, or is this a matter of establishing the tone with which the interview was conducted? If it's a matter of tone, it's not something that can be interpreted. Answer. Yes, certainly. There are not only differences and discrepancies, but there seems to be a certain development in the interview which should be interpreted and conveyed in all three languages quite easily. This is not just a matter of tone used.
The President, we would like to hear from the co-prosecutors to see whether they would like to accept it or not.
We don't object. Thank you.
The President, indeed, Counsel Vakang, you may proceed. And now, AV booth officers are now directed to play this portion of the video, of the recording for the court. This document is the 94/8R, starting from 33.31 minutes to 36.
Si je puis me permettre,
If I may, Mr. President, the excerpt begins at minute 34, second 31, and it ends at minute 37, second 32.
The President, indeed, now this portion must be played starting from 34.31 seconds and 37.32.
excusez-moi, c'est
Pardon me. 30, minute 37, second 52.
The President, that's what we already understood. Or perhaps the message was not clear through the rendition, but now the Chamber already allows the portion as requested by counsel for Mr. Kyusampon to be played. So the message is now clear that the portion that you have requested is to be played.
At that time, did he come alone? You think he is a man of power? Was he cruel? No, he was not. He was normal. And he came to the factory while we were eating and he looked at us. President, there is no video. Is it audio record or video clip? AV unit, please stop. Counsel, you may proceed.
Oui, merci, monsieur.
Thank you, Mr. President. There is no video image. There is a little bit of adaptation to the sound level, and the first sentence actually concerned the date, which wasn't translated into French, and I think that's very important as far as I'm concerned, so I'd like us to play it back so that we can start from the very beginning and hear that very first sentence or two.
President, AV unit, please replay that video, that audio clip. When did you meet him? It was 76. Did he come alone? Yes. Was he of a man of power? He was normal. Question, was he cruel? Answer, no, he was not. He was normal. He came to the factory while we were eating. He looked at us. Question, when Kisampon came to teach in 76, how many workers attended, and was it at Borakila? Answer, yes, at Borakila. And what was the content? It was the same. Did he speak of anything else? Answer, it's a yearly meeting. He talked about to fulfill the quota, how many tons per hectare, and that we should save. Question, anything else? Answer, during that study, we were asked to complete the quota, otherwise we need to criticize ourselves why we could not complete the quota of sowing. Did he talk about the politics? Answer, he talked whether we had our sufficient food. Question, did he talk about the Vietnamese invasion? Answer, no. So he spoke differently from what Nuon Chi did. Did he? Because you said Nuon Chi spoke about the treason. Answer, regarding the traitor, the treason in the north, it was different. Question, what did Kisampon say? Answer, he said Pong was a traitor. He was part of the traitorous network. And he was arrested because he was accused of being a traitor and collaborating with the Yuan. And did you know where Pong was taken? Answer, he said only that Pong was arrested and taken away. Question, what did you know about Office 870? Answer, I only heard he spoke about Office 870, but I didn't know what it was. But my sewing unit was also part of that big Office 870. Question, did he say that? Answer, yes. Question, did he say anything else regarding the arrest? Answer, no, only nearly the fall of the regime people had been arrested.
Effectivement, Monsieur.
Two passages that interested me particularly were not translated into French. My team, which was listening to the Khmer, says that these sentences were heard in Khmer. And two passages didn't appear in French. I don't know what to do now, whether I should request that this be listened to once again. Or I should submit to you this French translation that was done by a tribunal interpreter. Or should I read the two passages that I'm interested in?
President Judge Lavange, please take the floor in order to respond to the last part raised by International Council for Kyiv Sampon.
Thank you, Mr. President. The point we want you to understand, Council Verken, is that you can ask for an official translation by the Tribunal of the part that you would like to see fully translated. But at this juncture, we cannot base ourselves on an unofficial interpretation to continue interrogating this witness, who, don't let us forget, is not going to be recalled. Council Verken, yes, I'm well aware that she will not be recalled to this court, and that is precisely my difficulty. We are mindful of the debate about the length of the closing statements and so forth. We're not going to go into this now. But, Madam, if I could take the first part of what we have just heard from March 2008 with the co-prosecutor's investigator, and you said that the training session chaired by Kyo Sampon was in 1976, and you confirmed it to the prosecutor, and you were starting to confirm it to me when I initiated my questions. So let me ask you once again, Madam, what is your testimony in this court about the date when you attended the training session led by Kyo Sampon?
It was a long time ago, so my recollection may not be precise. And as I said, there were 2 study sessions. In the first study session, there was no talk about the treacherous network, and the talk was only in the second session regarding the treacherous network in the North Zone. And it was not mentioned in the first study session at all. President, thank you, Counsel and witness. The time is appropriate for a short break. We will take a break and return at 3 p.m. Court officer, please assist the witness during the break and have her return to the courtroom at 3 p.m. The court is now in recess.
សូមក្រោកឈរ